Hi, this is Dan Henk, and this is a second appearance of Robert on my show. So, what's up, man?
What's happening? Glad to be back, man.
Cool.
Been a minute.
So, you've been fairly busy. What do you have out now?
I'm always busy, man. I'm always working on stuff. Pretty much every single day of the year, I'm working on writing.
Are you gonna work on writing on Christmas?
Oh yeah. Of
No,
course.
no rest for the wicked, I guess, right?
Yeah, the only time I don't do any kind of writing stuff is when I don't travel very often, but if I travel, I don't bother bringing a computer with me and working in like a hotel or something. I
Right.
can't do that, but otherwise, if I'm at home, I'm pretty much gonna be writing every morning.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I have to be in the mood. Like sometimes I'll be writing, and when I just kind of transition out of the mood, I'm like, yeah, I'll go back to it when I'm good at it again. I don't subscribe to that Stephen King thing of like he says you have to pump out like 5,000 words a day, and you can always like edit out the ones you don't like. What about
Yeah,
you?
that's a little bit extreme, yeah. If I'm not feeling something, I'll move on to whatever I'm feeling. So I've got like projects that are in the middle that I've abandoned like a year ago. And someday if I'm feeling it, I'll come back to it. But yeah, I don't subscribe to writing, just writing to vomit words on the page and
Right.
that's a little crazy.
Also, back in the day, they got paid by word count, and like you could tell,
Yeah.
they really padded that shit out.
Oh yeah, for sure. They got these 500, 600 page books that totally could be 450 or 400, 250.
Yeah, yeah, and like even some of the stuff I really liked, I'm a big fan of The Shadow, and Maxwell Grant was the Walter Gibson's like author name, and you could just tell. I mean, you knew he was paid by the word, and you'd read it, and you're like, all that didn't need to be in there. There's just like a bunch of extra shit that really, doesn't advance the story.
Yeah. And when you start noticing it too, you're like, oh man, I guess maybe I could skim a little bit because, I notice that all the time. Especially the 80s horror novels and then, oh, it's got to be 500 pages. I'm like, well, I'm sure
Right.
some books can justify it, but sometimes you're like, we're describing this room so detailed. Either this has a lot to do with the future of this plot, somewhere this room's going to come into play, or I know that it's shag carpet that goes to matching drapes and a mahogany desk for no real
No
reason.
reason, yeah. I was reading was it 2000 or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jules Verne, and I remember he describes all this like fauna under the water, and I was like, well, he's kind of like being like over ridiculous about it and like, detailing every single plant, but at least, I'm learning some stuff. Then I found out he made all that shit up.
You go around telling people, yeah, I know all about underwater plants. They're like, what
But
the
it's
hell
like,
are you
why did
talking
I waste all my time reading all that shit when you just fucking made it up? It wasn't even interesting.
That's funny. Nowadays, you'd have a like, botanists, deep sea botanists or divers. I don't know, someone that'd be like, that
They'd
is
be
so
calling you out, yeah.
they'll call you out on social media. This person doesn't know what they're talking about.
All right, man. So let's go back to you. What you have out for a minute. What are you working on right now, and what do you have out that people can buy?
My latest release is called Four Cheers to Madness. That book right there. It's
I will put it on the screen. Just send me an image of it.
all right. That one is a collection of four novellas that span my writing career so far from my very first published novella called The Madness from 2011 all the way up to some more recent stuff. So I decided to just kind of put four novellas into a nice thick book and put that out. So that's like the newest thing. And the stories that they range from The Madness. That story is kind of a sort of an extreme horror story. It's not nearly as extreme as like what people are putting out these days, but it's maybe we can call it splatterpunk. There's another story called Salpson that is a total gothic horror story, and then there's one called The Filth Pig that's more of a quiet horror story, despite the title being The Filth Pig. It might not have been a wise choice. I think people thought that story was going to be like extreme, and it's not whatsoever.
Yeah, but I think people kind of get a feel for your style. So like if like Graham Matheson or Robert Matheson, sorry. I don't know why I keep calling him Graham. If Robert Matheson puts out something, I'm like, dude, he put out some bangers like I Am Legend and Hell House and Stir of Echoes. So I'm like, I kind of know what's going on. So it doesn't matter if he calls that like, like Master on the Sands or whatever. I'm like, I'm sure it'll be a good story.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I don't really think with a title, I don't think about how it's going to sound and if what the vibe it's going to get off. I kind of think like exactly like what you're saying. It's if I like an author, I'm going to pretty much read anything they write.
Right.
Outside of maybe high fantasy, I'm not into high fantasy. So my favorite author writes that. I'm like, sorry, but I'm probably going to pass on that one. But anything else, I don't. They could venture into any type of, horror, thriller, sci-fi, and I'll check it out. I have another novella that's actually in the collection called Follow the Maggot Wagon. And, it sounds like it could be a Western. It's not. It sounds like it might be like balls out extreme. It's got its moments, but it's really not. But I thought it was a cool title.
And I think it's more extreme when actually people are like kind of middle of the road, then all of a sudden something happens. You're like, holy shit. You know, like
Yeah.
like like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, which actually Game of Thrones is like a little bit more on the horror side than the fantasy side, which I loved. But it's like, kind of like it's like a harsh world, but it's like one way, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, they went there. So I love when people do that.
I think it's more effective that way, You build up you build things up and then smack them right across the face with something that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
expected, that I like that too. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like your favorite character, and then all of a sudden he dies horribly. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's a good story, keep going. That's another thing. It's like I guess some people are very talented, but some people fall in tropes. So it's like, I'm gonna throw out like every episode or every chapter, another major person is gonna die. Well, if it's part of a good story, you know.
Yeah.
What do you keep in mind? Because you've been in both the anthologies I put out, and it seems like you kind of have that like kind of classic like Twilight Zone style, like not classic as in like it's a over boring reading because some people fall in that they fall in that trope, but it's more like it's like a story that ends not as good as the people in it thought it would.
Yeah, I like the Twilight Zone style story or as far as short stories, I'm a big fan of like Robert Bloch, who is one of the kings of a twist ending, but actually pulling off a really good twist ending, which is kind of
Right.
hard to do these days. I really love those type of stories. So it would make sense that I'd kind of try and write stories that are in line with that style. Because like Twilight Zone is kind of big on the sort of the twist ending or that kind of thing. There's I've read stories that don't really. Dennis Etchison's a great example. His short stories, he doesn't seem to do like twist ending type of things. They're very cerebral and kind of. It's almost like the story sort of drifts out there, and you're reading it and you finish it, and you're like, I enjoyed it. I'm maybe not totally sure what I just read, but I liked it. I don't really write stories like that. I like it to be like what you read. It had an ending that is going to be satisfying. At least that's what I go for. So Twilight Zone-esque story, I find that to be a big compliment.
Yeah, everything I've read of yours so far, it's like very like what's going on. It's not like so surreal. You're like, yeah, is this reality? Is this a fever dream? It's like, no, it's like this. And kind of, it kind of pictures like a little bit like a beginning and end, like what the characters are. I like the characters aren't like, the super goodies and the super baddies. It's like they're just complex characters. I'd actually say that's one of the strengths of Stephen King is that his characters are so real. I mean, he has a little problem with the endings, but yeah, the characters are real.
Yeah. I really dig that too. Yeah, the characters being real. When I first started writing, I think I was at that time I was writing these total milk toast characters and I
Mhm.
knew it was rejection letters I would get and where where the editor would write some notes or something. And often back then got, your characters are 2D, they're 2D. It's like, what the fuck, man? They're 2D. And I'm like, yeah, they really are. They're boring as hell. And I had to start really thinking about people, people that I know, people that I've met, that kind of thing. And
Yeah, that's what I do. I try and base characters off people I know. I'm like, so how would Susie react to that? Or how would, David react to that? I'm like, oh, that's how they would act. So, it might not be the way I would act because if everyone sounded like me, it would be 2D.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's exactly it, right? Because, all the people that you know in life, you run into in life and all that kind of thing, you see how crazily different we all respond and react to things. And that's one of the keys, at least right there, I guess, to building interesting characters and just, taking that part of life. If we were all the same, this shit would be boring as hell. That's what makes life fun. We're not. I
Yeah.
can see someone do some crazy stuff and turn around and go, man, what made them think that that was a good idea? And
I
that's
know. Yeah. Sometimes you're like, I would definitely not do that, but
yeah.
that is interesting. So, um, what do you have a thing that you strive for, like a certain number of books or stories or whatever? Like, this year I've got to put out this amount.
That's a good question for the end of the year, isn't it? I kind of don't in the sense that being that I'm a very disciplined writer, I get up very early and I work every day on something. Not
What do you
necessarily
consider very early?
for me, very early, I get up at 5:15.
Holy shit.
And I go to work. I usually leave for work around between 7:30 and 8, depending on where my job is. So I'll write for about an hour or work on something, not always the same project. And so I have a lot of things that are done and they're kind of sitting there waiting for either the right opportunity to come up or when it's going to fit into my schedule for my, Infected Voices self-publishing stuff. Um, so I kind of have things sort of ready to go and I want to get out like at least 4 novellas or whatever in a year, kind
Okay.
of like one quarterly at least, and maybe a little bit more than that, depending. It's hard to judge, because I don't want to oversaturate the market with my own stuff. And at the same
Yeah,
time, I have plenty of, material that I've written to get out there. So I just keep writing and I know I've got something waiting in the wings when I'm ready for it or it's ready for me. I mean, one of my next books coming out is called At the Hour of Violence. I finished that thing like 3 years ago. It's just been sitting on my hard drive and I've written other things that I felt were more marketable or better, or I was way more into at the time. And finally I saw a pre-made cover art that I'm like, oh, that's perfect for At the Hour of Violence. That's going to come out next. And so that was, all kinds of different factors can make decisions on how I put my stuff out.
I used to feel that like when I wrote my first books, I was like, to be an official book, you have to be 300 pages. And now I see that's like I've done a lot of conventions where people are like, yeah, it's like 190 pages, and the editors, I'll tell editors like, oh, it's 200 pages, like, wow, that's long. So I don't know if standards have changed, if ideas have changed. Do you have any input on that?
I think I think a lot of people are putting novellas out, maybe because of how much time people are spending on their phone and all this shit, and that our
Like
attention
attention spans
spans
have gone way
are
down,
getting
yeah.
very, people are reading tweets and the tweet's too fucking long and they can't handle. How can we expect them to read a whole book? I guess I'm just speculating. So I think novellas have become popular because of that. Like 100-page little novella. A lot of those things I write are about 100 pages, and it's not because I want it to be that short. It's because the story ended and that's where it ended. I'm not padding it like we were talking about.
Right.
One thing I don't ever do is pad anything. I've even had an editor tell me to pad the story to hit a word mark they wanted. It was just like a 5,000 word story, and I was at 4, and I'm like, dude, I can't, I'm not gonna pad it. It's gonna be stupid. Whatever I add is gonna take away from the story. And he didn't take the story because of that. I'm like, whatever, that I just can't. do that. I
I don't
don't.
know. I find editors kind of weird too with stuff. It's like that. That's why I say, preferably 3,000 to 5,000 words for my anthology. And like, if people put in a good story and it's like 2,500, I'm like, cool. They put in a good story and it's like 6,000, cool. You know, it's really not a word count to me. I mean, unless it's like 100 words. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I feel the same way. And I'll ask, hey, my story's a little bit above or below. And most of the time, editors are cool with it, but sometimes they're not. And it's,
Yeah, sometimes editors are weird. Like what I always heard is that a lot of editors are frustrated writers. So like when they read your stuff, they want to reinterpret it the way they would write it.
Mm.
So it's like so they'll go I remember like there's all right, so the worst publisher I had was Damnation Books, which everyone talks shit about them, so I feel free to talk shit about them.
They were
But
supposed to publish a novella of mine, so I'm familiar.
and I remember there was some lady in charge, and she sent me this massive edit. It was like, well, I think you should say this, and you should say this. It's like, dude, it's my fucking book. I mean, I'm always open to like good advice, but it's like, don't tell me to rewrite everything. Write your own book.
Yeah. Now I feel that for sure. I've been fortunate that I haven't, well, for my self-published stuff, of course, I have my editors that I work with and we get along real well and understand each other in the process. And that's like the best. But with each publisher that publishes a book and I get their editor, I've had some, some not so great editors and I've had to say to the publisher, I mean, and I don't even know how to word the message. I had to one time just tell him like I don't agree with like half of the stuff your editor's doing. It just frankly doesn't seem like they know what they're doing. And then the
With
response was, "Oh, just
Damnation, I had to sue them to get my rights back because I was like, finally,
uh,
first I tried to work with them, and then I was like, fuck you. I signed a contract and you're violating the contract. And they just kept going. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sue you. And so then instead of returning my rights via email, they said they were going to mail them. So on purpose, they mailed it to the wrong address.
jeez." I remember when that whole thing was going down with them. It was just such a mess. And it's like, why? Why hold people's rights hostage? If you can't
Right.
get along, you don't want to put. I wouldn't want to work with someone who I'm not getting along with for whatever the
Right.
reason is. To me, it's like just sever relinquish the contract. Some people are just dicks. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, I remember I was with Permuted, and then Permuted was pulling all sorts of shit on people. And a lot of people were going to Crossroad Press, which is David Wilson's brand, and like his publishing company. And I went to there, and he's fucking awesome. And he's pretty
Yeah,
much like, hey, if you want whenever you want your rights back, I'll just give you your book back.
yeah, that's good. They seem like good people at Crossroads, for sure.
Yeah,
They've got a good reputation.
yeah, they're really nice. And I remember they did we did scares and cares. I remember you told me you were like it was the best convention you'd done at the time. I don't know if you've done more since then, been even better. But I remember at the time you were telling me, oh, it was great, and you sold a lot of books. And I remember I did the first year with David Dodd, who's one of the guys, one of the publishers. The other one's David Wilson. And I remember the next year they bought like a whole like when you walk in, on the side they had like a three tables set up with like all their books, and they let me set up at one of them, so it was awesome. Yeah,
Oh
they're nice
yeah.
guys.
Yeah, I know David Dodd. I met him a few times. I've bought some vintage paperbacks from him. He's got quite a collection of vintage paperbacks, horror paperback.
So do you tend to go with a traditional publisher? Do you tend to put out your own stuff mostly? What do you do mostly?
These days, I do more self-publishing, especially the past 2, 3 years. But to start, I went with traditional publishing for a long time. It was like total growing pains. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I wasn't promoting things good. I didn't know how to sell a damn book. And then, yeah, so I started to see a lot of people have a lot of success with self-publishing. So I went in that direction for the past 3 years or something, for the most part, with a few books here and there from traditional publishers. I had a splatter Western with Death's Head Press and a couple of different things. And I liked what I like about it is having the control, having all the control over give as many copies away for free as I want for reviews and all that. I started to see a lot more success that way. But now I'm kind of trying to split it up a little bit more. So I'm trying to get some things out there. Um, with some traditional publishers. Evil Cookie Publishing is going to put out a book early next year that I wrote with Chuck Nasty called Flesh and Metal. And then
Okay.
I signed with another publisher. We haven't announced it yet, so I guess I won't announce it here because they're probably
You
going
don't
to
have to
an
you
official
don't have to
announcement.
violate anything. Yeah.
and, and that one I'm really excited about. I think it'll be announced in January. So next year will definitely be more of a hybrid, going to, back to some traditional stuff. And it's hard to relinquish the control.
That might be the best bet.
I think so.
Because like I have some stuff traditionally published, some stuff I put out myself, and it seems to work.
Yeah, yeah. I have high hopes, so we'll see what happens. The future brings, you know?
Is everything you have out, that all you had available? Do you have some stuff that kind of went out of print that's like nobody can get anymore?
Yeah, I do have a few things. My very first book is out of print and it will never see print again because it's a total turd. I have a few other things that I've taken out of print, and it, I'm always moving forward. I don't look back, so to speak, so much. I remember seeing an interview with, I'm blanking on his name, but the singer for Rancid, who
Oh,
was
Tim Armstrong, yeah.
yeah, who was in Operation Ivy, and people would ask,
Yeah,
Operation Ivy ever gonna have a reunion? He'd be like, no, I look forward. I don't look back. It'll never
yeah.
happen. I kind of take that approach. So it's hard for me to go back and want to republish these old, anything that's out of print. If I did, they would get a fresh edit and I would go through them, which is actually what I did with the collection, Four Cheers to Madness. I did reprint an old out of print story, The Madness. And I went through that thing and I was like, man, this this is rough. And so
Yeah, that
I tightened it.
my first two books, it was the same thing. Like I put them out both via Premier Press, and when I finally got the rights back, and Jeff Strand, good on him, he helped me get the rights back. But I got the rights back, and I was like, man, I need to. I'm so much better now. I don't know what I
Yeah.
was thinking. So I went through them. I literally spent 80 hours on each one, like revising, re-editing. Yeah, it's like you just learn so many tricks of the trade as you go along.
Oh yeah. And always learning, right? I feel like
Yeah.
I'm always learning. If I could, I like to learn something every day. When I'm reading books for leisure, I can't not read them as a writer and sometimes really recognize what works and doesn't work and try and apply that to what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. You probably do this, but like I'll read something, I'm like, wow, that was a good idea. I need to do
Yep.
something like that.
Oh yeah,
But
definitely. Or I'll even read it and go, "Ooh, I wouldn't have done that," or "It's really bad."
exactly, yeah, exactly.
And then I could like recognize why do I feel like the story's lagging here, and by recognizing it, I can, you know what, I can avoid that.
You can't help it, but you get a little critical. You're like, I would not have made that choice.
Yep.
So, going back to what you have out, how can people see what you have and buy it? Do you have a website where you have everything listed on there?
Yeah, well, obviously the Amazon that has everything. But I sell signed copies through my Big Cartel page. Off the top of my head, I think it's ressighord.bigcartel.com. Um, that's where you get signed copies of my books.
I'll look it up and put it on the screen.
Yeah, and then like I said, Amazon has everything. It's the way it is.
So you have an author page on Amazon, take
Yeah,
it.
if you type
Yeah.
my name in there, there's an author page and it has all my books on there. Whether they're self-published or from other publishers, they're all in one area.
Only when do you venture into audiobooks and ebooks and where do you go with everything?
Yeah, so yeah, most of my books are I think everything's print and ebook. And then there's a good handful that I did audiobooks for, and they're all available. They're all available on Amazon too. Like Baby Fights, Disco Rice, Broth House, The Traveling Movie Show. There's about 5 or 6 audiobooks. Three of them are done by John Wayne Communale, who absolutely kills it. He is such a good narrator. So I would suggest that anybody listen to anything that he reads because he's so good.
Yeah, I remember when Crossroads they did an audiobook version and they sent it a couple different people to like read through it so I could determine which voice I liked better. I thought that was great. I used this guy Fred. He's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I've
People are like, oh, did you narrate a book? I'm like, you do not want me to narrate my book.
Yeah, I wouldn't even, it would take me so, I can't read a page without fumbling over a word, and there's not a chance, man.
I did Kickstarter for my I was like signed number limited edition hardcovers and I remember you have a little video and a little narration. I kept trying to narrate it. I was like, dude, I'm gonna find somebody who's way better than me.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
So, all right, man. Definitely don't want to keep you here all day, but let me get a couple shout outs. So, do you have one book that you're like people should definitely check this out if you want to like start checking out my work?
I think for someone who hasn't read anything by me, This Damned House is the best place to start. It has 4 longer short stories that I just think they're some of my best writing. And I think it's a good place to get a couple good examples of what I'm all about. I always suggest that when people approach me at conventions and ask, like, I've never read anything, which one to go with. That's always my go-to.
Oh, what conventions are you going to this year?
What's that?
What conventions are you going to this year?
In 2026?
Yeah.
So far, let's see, what do I have locked down for sure? Um, there's what is it called? There's one here in Knoxville. It's called it's like a book festival that's done in the convention center downtown. They started it last year. I think it's called Knoxville Book Fest. I'm doing that one. I'll be doing FrankenCon here in Knoxville, CreepyCon here in Knoxville, and then I'm doing a brand new convention in Indiana, and man, the name ShiverCon in Indiana. This will be the first year of that one. That's all I have locked down so far. I only do about 4 or 5 shows a year, mostly local stuff with like maybe 1 or 2 that I travel to. So
Are you
that's what I
doing
got
any
going
of
so
the
far.
big Texas ones like Killer Con or AuthorCon?
Yeah, I would love to do KillerCon. I did the very last time it was in Las Vegas years ago before it took a hiatus and came back in. I went to that one. That was my first convention actually. And I lived in the West Coast at that time. That was why it was easy to get there. From where I live, Texas is either a hell of a drive or I guess a plane flight away. I haven't committed to that yet, but I'd love to do Killer. I'd love to do any of those or the AuthorCon, especially KillerCon though. That'd be a lot of fun.
Well, Killer Con, I guess mainly one of the main people putting on was Ruth James White, and he moved. He moved to Thailand. So this year, instead of August, which is kind of hot in Texas in August,
Yeah.
um, they're moving to November.
Oh yeah.
So I you might want to look into that. But I do it every year, and I always if I do a reading, I sell out. So I love doing readings.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did a reading the first year, the only reading I've ever done, the first year of Scares That Care AuthorCon, the first one I did, which was number 2. I did a reading and it seemed to go pretty good, and I think it did help people come to the table and whatnot. So I could totally see that. I'm nervous as hell doing a reading because I didn't do too bad when I'm trying practicing
Same
to
here.
read
I
it.
hear you. Yeah, I
I feel
did
like
a
I'm
reading. It's
fumbling
so
every
good.
word. I miss a word, it's just like
I did a
nerve-wracking.
reading at SogaCon, and it was the first reading I'd ever done. So like I didn't, I didn't know anything about finessing or anything. So I just started reading it and I was like, is my time up? And they're like, yeah, you're done. I was like, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
But all right, man. So everybody should check out your stuff, give you money, Big Cartel, Amazon author page. Do you have anything else you want to give a shout out to?
Nah, if anybody takes a chance on anything that I've written, that's awesome. And
Yeah,
if
well,
people that do read it, leave a review and tell the world about it. Go on TikTok and Facebook. Let everyone know. Word of mouth is the best way to get everyone to hear
oh, I
about
agree.
what they're
If
doing.
people leave reviews, I don't care if you leave a bad review. I prefer you leave a good one, but I don't care if you leave a bad review as long as it's a review.
Yep.
But thank you very much for being my two anthologies so far. People really seem to like your story and the second one a lot. I've gotten a lot of feedback that people really like that.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
But all right, man, thanks for doing this. And do you have anything else you want to throw out there to the social sphere?
No, man, thanks for having me back, dude. It was fun. We'll do it again, I hope.